Get out the insurance cards, get out the co-pays. The office is open, my friends, as this video is brought to you by drroto.com.
These
at Landers Talk at Dr. Roto. By my co-host on Intentional Mancini and Mark. It's great to be back. Let everyone know where they can find.
Well, it's a sweep in the country, and I'm so in a row. XM's sports byline on Friday, WDB. Talk on Thursdays, the Pittsburgh with first days and Fridays. All over the place like you, bruh. Detroit, man, oh man, you and I are, sir.
Yeah, as you said, exciting to be something that's kind of funny for you, which makes it worse. Your Pittsburgh runs yesterday. Again, how do you feel about that?
Times this year they've given us, I know we got hammered in the year, I think it was 20, were giving me a hard time. 1975, 22-0, 7 for 7. God rest his soul. But yeah, we've 24 on the year, 9 back. The Redbirds, in Pittsburgh, we were hit open on Friday, Saturday, and then we get 18-4. Resilient when we lose back the following day. I'm looking for a nice 3 games the rock pile here in Pittsburgh, San Diego, and LA, and play Arizona. So West real good.
Yeah, I thick and positive about your soon, but good. But we can't say that about very good. And win yesterday with the 18 boosts from some pro and Brendan Donovan and getting called up. This looks like a team kind of picking up from where they end. Even without their aim is very good, and I'm excited out between them and the Brewers because between those two teams, really the end of the season, it really is. It's not. I'm not trying to knock or the Pirates, the Reds, of talent and success have and are going to have for the remaining.
Well, you see them 23 of 27 last 27 games. The Pujols has hit 30 to the opponent in PNC Park. It's 10-0 against the Pirates. You look at this team, yeah, they don't, they have been, but you're right. The Brewers, of course, got some and a nice bullpen. The depth of the Cardinals, you left and right. Dangerous down the stretch. Dodgers and Mets. The Mets have forces here for, picked up a ball and out for, 2 months. Everybody talks about what the Dodgers, keep your eye on National League here. The Brewers, Padres, because overtake the Dodgers and the Mets September.
Yeah, the great opportunity to make the 6th team added. No rate as well. Mentioned to be in one through the division. And yeah, he's back, especially if they keep to make a real push for that division, despite not looking great on competitive too. Their postseason, definitely interested who they don't have now. Interested to hold on in that will come at some point. They'll come at them. Philly bullpen and some back end pitchers don't have enough offense. We know that's Mets, but the door is open as it was last year.
The problem in New York now, still in the mix. One's got unlimited cash, great manager. So, you hold the fort here. They battled the snow elements. Header got hammered. And the interesting team, their bullpen's horrendous. In the start of the year, Han and Knable here. And they were 1 win away, 4-game series. Angeles a week ago. And then, return. The Phillies got bats back in pitching, and there's Wheeler.
Yeah, the Phillies. So we've had a lot of American League teams in terms, but before we do that, this past weekend between the Yankees, scrap fueled by some Donaldson comments. I don't know what we're talking about. According to Tim Anderson as opposite Anderson, upsetting Donaldson of being racist. Tony La Russa saying the same down on this. What are your initial?
Well, if you start and you basically did because you put it out there, calling you by that, he made the reference in Robinson. So now Jackie, and now we overturn as if you work with you see a lady and you comment, but some people have getting to get to the point where, hey, I don't what the hell are you wearing? And you're looking for comment. So if Jackie Robinson and some, they're just that he really, and what's wrong with that situation here where I think the Flames.
My big thing on it is one lot, because at first I saw it and I was Donaldson should have kept his mouth shut. I saw one, Anderson had kind of coined the first thing. The second thing is when playing at the AL Central and the White Sox, apparently Donaldson and talked like whatever it might be. And there brings me to the Yankees. The two teams met about 7-10. There was a play where Donaldson on Anderson, and Anderson thought it was a little bit of beef, a little bit of work. Nothing really came of it. And then this is where Donaldson calls him Jackie, blows into this huge thing, this, that, the other, ever. But I think Donaldson was continuing. Tim Anderson had already had something that Donaldson had already, and I think blown out of proportion. The one I don't mind Tony La Russa. I think it's something that into his ball club, a team that had this season, a team rally around the situation and the clear under them, and I expect them baseball because of it.
I was to sit here with you, the all-time shortstop, Tim Anderson wouldn't even be on. And that's not a knock. I've seen through the years, great players and bust. I don't know, with this team, the Chicago White Sox this year, and if Tony La Russa has anything for the hump, yeah, he was great one. But this ago, when the first go around in Chicago, he really didn't do anything, to me. So, rate shortstops and everything. This guy, Tim Anderson, anytime shortstops. I don't know where he has.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I'm great or anything for me, but one of the better shortstop. He's a tool type of talent, and I do think La Russa got them spot last year. I expect them to be actually possibly run away. Twins are playing good baseball. Another thing to kind of take the side of, maybe Don snideness behind his. Do you really think he, when he plays in, has a number of other African-American players, however polite, most don't want to seem instant, but Donaldson has to play with players of, if he and things that he said, getting along so well in this year. All I've heard about Donaldson is gritty, great teammate he is. I don't think, and what we'd hear about him, undertones and things that he says, kind of taking this one kind of turning him into something that he's a hard-nosed guy who conflict here and there, but that is remotely or overtly offensive.
Once you see the up and doing Tim Anderson, the egg on the face now, people aren't over people's face, and you're somebody. And it for now 40 years. All you that when they get a hitter, then it's your own fault. Now himself is Jackie. Josh Donaldson made a play in the race card in this. You stand here and like we said, so the New York faithful with him the whole night yesterday. And
he definitely did. He went well to that. I'll give him that.
Yeah.
He came out there
too in the souvenir case and say, well, that I got this from New York. So you can see how the New York faithful treated it. They figured, you know what, hey, you're the one that started this. We're not going to, rip our own guy on it. Now, if it was a problem, New York fans aren't stupid enough. They would have came in to Tim Anderson's defense, but they figured this whole thing out. Come on, Tim. You're the guy that started it. Now you want us to feel sorry for you.
Yeah, that's my biggest issue with this, what you just said. And I'm not going to put much into what New York fans do because a lot of them are idiots. I mean, you remember earlier this season, the stuff going on with Miles Straw. They're not necessarily the poster boys for being good, polite fans. So I'm not even going to look into that. But while we're on the subject of the Yankees, I think we should talk about Aaron Judge. I mean, I know it's somewhat old news because it happened before the season began. I'm sure you've talked about it a lot on your shows. I've talked about it on a number of my shows. We haven't gone to talk about it yet, and the situation is pretty clear. Judge is an elite talent. He's the face of that franchise right now. He's having an MVP caliber year as we speak. But he did turn down a contract extension, a pretty fair offer. Not an incredible offer, but a very fair offer by the Yankees before the season began. He said he doesn't want to discuss in season. So Judge is technically going to hit the open market this year. Now, will he actually hit the open market and start getting tons of offers from other teams? Will the Yankees lock him up? I think that's the big question.
Well, the key here is I know Aaron Judge, is a mainstay in New York. And he's done wonders there. But when I look at Aaron Judge, is he in a Juan Soto a bar? Is he on a Bryce Harper bar? And I'm saying to myself, I don't quite put him that. Now, the Washington Nationals are a bunch of idiots, and I'll put that out there because they don't even want to give this guy $375 million or whatever he wants to lock up a young stud like him, the next Bryce Harper.
I don't think Soto wants to be there, to be honest, Mark. I actually just released an article this morning about how Soto should be traded, and he should be traded as early as this season because I don't think he wants to be there. Yes, he has 2+ years of team control left, but they're not going to be competitive during that time, and they might not be competitive for another 5+ years. I'm not sure he wants to stay around in a place where he has no chance to winning, and I know he already won one very early in his career. I think it was 2019, but Washington is not looking like a team that's going to be competing for a championship anytime soon, and there's a lot of teams out there that can and will pay him that are competitive now and will be competitive by the time that new deal that he does get kicks in. So I don't even know if it's about Washington not willing to re-sign him as much as it's about Juan Soto probably wanting a new start somewhere else on a more competitive team.
Well, when you look like the Montreal Expos and you don't want to spend to surround them with some talent there, of course, maybe then he wants to go. But if you're the Washington Nationals and you're Mike Rizzo sitting there, get this thing, build some talent around him. This is a team, you're right, 3 years removed from a World Series, and they look like a bottom feeder.
And they are a bottom feeder, Mark. And the problem for them is it's not getting any easier. The Mets are only going to always be competitive now with Steve Cohen and that money. The Braves have a very good young core. The Phillies have a lot of talent, and they are surely going to get better before they get worse. And the Marlins are coming. It's a slow process, but they have great pitching. Washington could be a 4th or 5th place team for 5 to 7 years now. And yes, Soto's only 23 years old, but does he really want to play his prime in a team where he's in last place and where there's nothing around him? And his performance this year is suffering because of the team around him.
Well, here's the deal, Lou, and you bring up interesting points, but in Pittsburgh, they didn't sign Barry Bonds, and we were set back for I don't know how many years. We dodged the Bobby Bonilla bullet, but we couldn't dodge when we lost Drabek and Bonds the following year. But you're seeing what's happening in Pittsburgh, and I don't want to, stand here and act biased on a situation that I think is good in Pittsburgh. But we signed to Brian Hayes and Brian Reynolds, young studs there in Pittsburgh, a cornerstone to go along with our good pitching. We got Henry Davis, the number 1 draft pick from last year. So, when I hear, they don't want to spend money or they don't want to do this. But
Mark, you can't compare the caliber of player to those guys in Soto or the amount of money. You can pay Brian Hayes 4 times his contract and Brian Reynolds 2 times his contract, and it still might not equal what Juan Soto's going to get. So I don't think it's really a fair comparison. I understand the idea of walking up to young studs, but Soto is in a world of his own, not only because of his talent, but because he's only 23 years old.
So what kind of message you send to the Washington, D.C. faithful is, if you don't sign a guy like this, if you don't surround him with talent, to make a guy happy, surround him with talent and give him what he wants. He's a stud. He's only like 23, 24, 25 years old. But what message do you give your fan base when you let this guy walk? You bring in prospects. Who's hanging around watching a team in Washington, D.C., looking up at the Braves, Marlins, Mets, and Phillies?
But they're going to be looking up at those teams with or without Juan Soto. They're better off at least getting something for Juan Soto, potentially a huge haul. I mean, probably a groundbreaking trade. We're talking 3 or 4 top 5 prospects from an organization and probably some MLB-ready talent. And sure, it might be 1 step backwards at first, but it could be 3 or 4 steps forward over time. And that's sometimes what teams have to do.
That comparison we could use to the Angels. For years, they hung on to, Mike Trout, and people were saying, get rid of him to get a long haul from the Yankees or somebody like that. They decided to hold on to him, surrounded him with Rendon, surrounded him with Ohtani, blew out Pujols there, let Walsh have an access to it, and brought in a high-priced manager in Madden, and look what the Angels have done. So they were in the same situation the Nationals were, treading water, Trout not getting to the playoffs, but they decided, okay, let's surround him, with some talent around here, and look at the Angels. The Angels aren't going anywhere.
I think it's a different situation, a different stage in their careers, and a completely different divisional landscape. We're talking about one team in the Astros at this point who are standing in the Angels' way. We're talking about 4 teams that are already better than the Nationals and continuing to get better. And that's kind of where it differs. Also, it was Trout who decided to sign a big extension with the Angels. That's also one thing you have to remember. Trout decided, I want to be here for the long haul. I'm going to sign this deal. Soto doesn't appear to want to be there for the long haul. And that's what it comes down to. Again, it's not about whether Washington is willing to serve up the money. It's about whether Soto wants to be there. And this is going to be his one big opportunity at a very young age to go where he wants for the amount of money that he wants. Because even if he's traded, that doesn't mean he has to sign where he gets traded to either. So those are multiple things to consider. But we got a little bit off topic because this did start with Judge. And I like what you said. I don't think Judge is in that Harper or Soto conversation at this point, but I don't think it's due to a lack of production or skill. It's due to the injuries and the injury history of Aaron Judge. You put Judge's 162 game average together and it matches up to anybody. The issue has been him staying on the field. Now, last year he did it. So far this year, he's done it. Perhaps I know he's done a lot, but invested a lot in his own training regimen and gone into yoga and all these different things to kind of help his body stay fresh and be healthier. And so far, it looks good. The question remains, let's say he stays healthy, let's say he doesn't stay healthy this year. How much is this guy worth? Is he worth $38-40 million a year, or is he more worth what the Yankees initially offered? Now, at this point, it looks like he's going to be worth a lot more and get a lot more. If it's not from New York, it's certainly going to be from a team like the Angels or the Dodgers or the Giants or the other team in New York. All these teams have the money to do it. He wants to be a Yankee for life. He has said so multiple times. The Yankees, in my opinion, would be absolutely insane to let this guy go, even if it does cost them $400 million.
Well, if he goes in the National League, and you know where I'm going with this, I think the National League, the pitching is much better than the American League. I think you got the unbelievable pitching across the board with the Dodgers, the Padres, the Giants. You could throw the Brewers, Cardinals, the Mets, the Braves. I think, and I don't want to knock this, and this could be another conversation for, when we get back from Memorial week. But I look at the American League and the pitching. He can crush the hell out of the ball in the American League, but I don't think the pitching. I think if he comes to the National League and he comes to the Dodgers or the Giants or one of these teams, he's going to have a hell of a time getting adjusted for quite a few months to National League pitching. I don't know what your thoughts are.
I mean, it is a possibility. Now, he does play in a very good division. Tampa has great pitching. The Blue Jays have a hell of a rotation. Boston's pitching not so good yet this year, and obviously Baltimore's pitching, although this year it's actually been quite good, much better than in the past. Traditionally, since Judge has been in the league, hasn't been all that great. So I can see where you're going with that. Of course, if he goes to the Dodgers or Giants, he doesn't face that rotation, but he does have to face a number of other tough customers. I think if the Yankees are willing to pay Judge, he stays, but I don't think he's taking any sort of hometown discount, nor should he, or be expected to.
Well, and then you got another guy there with Giancarlo Stanton that you gave him the Brooklyn Bridge and Statue of Liberty and everything. What do you do with that guy?
I don't think there's an issue there. I think a lot of people blow that out of proportion. For one, Stanton's not making a lot of money compared to what guys are getting now and what he would get now if he hit the open market. Secondly, they gave up almost nothing to get him. They basically got him for free. And it hasn't been an issue because he can DH a lot, obviously, but he's been playing a lot more right field. The Yankees have utilized Judge in center. They're doing a very good job of getting all these guys in and not kind of wearing them down. So I don't think having Judge and Stanton together is any problem at all. It more so comes down to is baby Steinbrenner going to be willing to go over the luxury tax like his counterpart on the other side of the city in New York, Stephen Cohen? Because the Yankees, clearly, they have all the resources they could possibly need. And I understand wanting to spend carefully, but we're not talking about an average player here. When it comes to signing your superstars, I think you have to ante up and give up big-time money, whether it goes over the luxury tax or not. The Yankees will not be as good without Aaron Judge, and it's as simple as that.
Well, not only that, and you bring up Steve Cohen, I think he's going to get one of these three guys, whether it be Judge, if he decides to stay in New York and the Yankees don't pony up, the Mets will pony up, or the Mets will get Soto.
That's where I have to disagree. Could Soto in free agency decide to go there? Sure, but I do not see the Nationals trading Juan Soto within that division.
Well, yeah, and then the other one that could be going to New York, because I think he's wearing out his welcome out here, is Cody Bellinger, and there's been talk of him going to New York.
Yeah, the difference is that he's no longer a superstar. He had that superstar season, but he's the type of guy that might have to sign one of those 1-year bridge deals of like 10-12 million and earn himself back a big time contract. 'Cause I don't see anyone forking over a big time deal worth big money for a lot of years based on the way he's been performing the last year and a half.
Yeah, good point there across the board.
All right, well, let's move things over to some of these surprising and disappointing teams so far. The one surprise for me right now has to be the Minnesota Twins. They're a team that last year was supposed to be good and were not. They were dreadful. This year, before the lockout, seemed like they were going to have another tough season. But then all of a sudden, they acquire Sonny Gray. They make the trade with Donaldson, bringing in Urshela and Sanchez, giving them fresh starts. They sign Carlos Correa, and they're off to a pretty darn good start here to the season. They lead this division. They might very well be the second best team in this division. I don't think they are better than the Chicago White Sox, but you have to be impressed. Buxton, when playing, is excellent. Jorge Polanco, a great player. We know Carlos Correa kind of brings that winning attitude. Luis Ariz is an undervalued player. Sanchez still terrible defensively, but can make a difference. Gio Urshela, same thing. They have this young kid, Jose Miranda, who tore up the minors last year. They gave Royce Lewis a cup of coffee. He'll be back up. So they have a pretty solid team. I'm not sure they hold on to this divisional lead, but I do think they're a team that have to be considered as a playoff contender, a team that can get to the playoffs this season, assuming that they continue to stay healthy and play some pretty good baseball.
Well, I think you're right. They're a big surprise there, and Rocco Baldelli, and that whole crew. I mean, that's amazing what they're doing there, and picking up, some of these the guys that compensate too, through the trades and what they've done there, and I think that's completely huge. But the White Sox are going to rule that division. Kansas City, Detroit, Cleveland trying to find themselves. But my big surprise has to be the Milwaukee Brewers. Best start in a 40-game stretch to start a season in franchise history. I think what Craig Counsell's done there is simply amazing. I put him up there with, Bambi's Brewers in 82. They got pitching. They got horses in the pen. And this is a team that's dangerous. People can say, well, they're not really a surprise. But if you're 26-15 now and you got the Cardinals held down, this is a surprise here. Well, the hold down the Cardinals. A lot of people see when the Reds gave up the farm and everybody, they looked like a single A team, and the Reds were, a pretty damn good team the last couple of years, and everybody was talking about what the Reds can do, and then the Cubs had fire sales, so they've kind of flip flopped that thing around, and the Brewers have been kind of in the mix here, and we see them in the playoffs, and they get beat by the Dodgers in a grueling series and stuff like that. But
lost to the Braves last year. But yeah, I mean, the landscape of this division with three really weak teams makes the Brewers' success really not surprising at all. As I mentioned, I think I was actually on mute in the studio, so people probably heard silence for like 5 seconds. They were great last year. They're good again now. It's really not a surprise. I mean, I like their story. I think they're a good team, but I don't consider it to be a surprise really at all.
Well, in more ways than one, I think if the Brewers take this up a notch and they win a World Series, then people are going to be surprised. Like they weren't.
Correct.
Everybody thought the Braves were going to be a good team, and then but they never saw the Braves coming to win the World Series. We've all talked about the Dodgers doing something. They finally won one in 2020. Nobody saw the Washington Nationals in 2019. In that one of those pandemic years, nobody saw the Marlins coming. So every year there's a team that, they're kind of treading water. You kind of see them, and then when they win the World Series or they do something special, then you kind of go, "Weird, I didn't see that coming."
Yeah, if the Brewers win the National League Championship Series and go to a World Series, then I will be surprised. Now, are they a good team and could they do it? Absolutely, but I do think I do think they need to take that next step. I'm more interested in talking about some of these disappointments. Now, I had the Jays on this initially, but I'm not sure I could say it's a disappointment. They're still 22-19, and in any other division, they'd probably be a game or two back. They just happen to be 7 back right now of the Yankees, which is far from insurmountable. So I don't necessarily consider them a disappointment, but I certainly expected more from them. I expected them to be the favorite in this division, and they still might be. It's a long season. But in this division, there is a disappointment. And although they're playing much better as of late, 8-2 over their past 10 games, albeit against pretty weak opponents, Boston Red Sox are a bit of a disappointment to date at 19-22. Lots of time for them to get back into it as well. 10 games back, sure, but not that far back of a postseason spot. The offense, we know it's great. I just have a lot of worries and question marks about their starting pitching and their bullpen. Can they beat bad teams or average teams? Yes. How do they fare against the good teams, though? That's where I think the Red Sox are going to be in trouble.
Well, if you want to look for a disappointment worse off than the Boston Red Sox, would have to be the Seattle Mariners.
Oh, yeah. They were next on my list, so I'm glad you brought them up.
This is a team that everybody had some aspirations about and everything. You look at these guys, and they're battling Oakland and Texas going the other way, while the Angels and Astros are going, challenging each other. Now, I know it's early. We haven't hit Memorial Day and everything. But what's going on in Seattle is a big disappointment in more ways than one. Young squad, brought in a couple guys from the Reds, and Suarez, and they're just not doing anything. And that's to me, it falls on management there.
It does, and I mean, I do think they expected more out of in Seattle of guys like Kalenic. Logan Gilbert's been good, but George Kirby, not so much yet, although he's a highly touted prospect. Remember, Seattle wasn't that great to begin last year either, and they kind of came on strong as the season progressed. Now, they've been without Mitch Haniger, who had a hell of a season last year. They're getting Kyle Lewis back. We'll see if he can stay healthy. They did lose Kyle Seager, who was kind of the heart and soul of that team. So they are going through a bit of a transition, but they do have the pieces to be a competitive team. And I know Texas made some improvements, but I don't think they have the pitching. We know Oakland's not very good. I don't want to count the Seattle Mariners out of this yet at all, but they do have it in tough because the Astros aren't going anywhere, and the Angels do look for real because they finally have some pitching with Detmers and Sandoval and Thor all there behind Shohei Ohtani. I think the Angels are for real as well. So I do think Seattle's in tough. I am surprised by their slow start, but I'm not ready to count them out yet. Just like I'm not ready to count out the Boston Red Sox because of the talent they have. The Red Sox just have it a little tougher because they have 3 very good teams to contend with as opposed to 2 within their own division. And I do think that, unlike Seattle, I don't think Seattle necessarily has any clear weaknesses. I would make an argument that the Red Sox bullpen and back end of their rotation is a big weakness for them.
Well, and not only that, I think it's the beginning of the end in Oakland. I think this team will be out of Oakland within 3 years. I think losing Manaea, Chapman, Olsen, and Melvin.
But that's not really as relevant in terms of how Seattle or Boston's going to do, because you can make the argument that the Orioles are, although the Orioles are a more competitive team than the A's, they certainly are, and if the Orioles were in another division, they might even win 75 games. But stuck in that AL East, they're stuck. Both divisions, my point is, they both have that basement team to beat up on. And just like the NL East has the Nationals and the NL West at some point will have the D-backs and Rockies who won't continue to play at 500, and the NL Central has the Pirates, Cubs, and Reds, and the AL Central, although I did expect more from the Tigers and Royals, they've proven to be teams that can be beaten up on as well. So, I mean, that's where you're going to make or break it. When you play your good teams, you're hoping you go 500, maybe, you win 11 of the 19 games or something like that. It's beating up on those really bad teams. And if you don't beat up on those really bad teams, you're just not going to have success, because it's one thing to play okay against the teams that are tough, but if you can't beat the teams you're expected to beat and supposed to beat, that's where your season goes down the drain.
Well, not only that, when you looked at 2019 with the Dodgers, when they waltzed that division by like 23 games or whatever, and Washington came in there and beat them in their own backyard, I think what you looked at was a team that, and I continue to say this about the Dodgers, and I don't want to harp on it too much and get off track, but this is a team, if you're not tested during the year, you will find yourself tested when the playoffs come around, because you're going to find teams that have been playing playoff baseball 6 months of the year compared to you playing playoff baseball 1 month of the year.
Well, that's a very fair point, but I don't know if anyone's running away with any of these divisions this year. I mean, the Brewers and Cardinals are going to run away from the rest, but they're going to be tight. Astros and Angels should be tight. The Rays, Yankees, Jays, maybe Boston should be tight. The Dodgers are going to be chasing the Padres all year. Giants sticking around, and the Mets, although they have the big lead now, the Braves are coming. You just know the Braves are going to play better than they are right now. So I don't know if that's going to be the case this year where someone's just running away with things and not playing meaningful baseball in September and going into October. But I understand your point, and it's well taken.
Yeah, if I'm the Phillies, the first thing I'm doing is going to the general store and unloading the guys I have in the bullpen and picking up some fine pitching. I don't care if it even costs me prospects, because if the Phillies can address that bullpen, they got the bats to compete with anybody in both leagues.
Yeah, well, we've been saying that since Joe Girardi got the job in Philadelphia, and no matter what combination of bullpen pieces they have, it just doesn't seem to work. And yeah, that's great, and the Phillies will try to do that, but there's a lot of other teams out there that'll be looking for those same things and those same pieces who have a better farm system and more to trade than the Phillies do.
Good point. God, what a show!
Yeah, what a show, man. I mean, it's like we haven't had all this time off. We're crushing it here today, and getting towards the end. So let me know if you have any final thoughts on what we've talked about, or really just anything else you did want to bring up before we wrap this baby up.
Well, I'll tell you the two big pieces that were instrumental in the off season. That's going to help two franchises tremendously, and we already see it. You got Melvin in San Diego managing, getting rid of that Jace Tingler that kind of lost the whole clubhouse, didn't know what the hell he was doing. And then finally in New York, Buck Showalter. This guy's the next coming of Terry Collins. I know he's a tactician of sorts and everything, but he's kind of mellowed over the years. These two franchises, as long as these two managers are there, I'm not worried about these two teams year in and year out getting to the playoffs.
No, I think Showalter's a hell of a manager, and he was definitely the right choice by the New York Mets. No question.
Yep. So that's my final thoughts on this great show.
All right, buddy. Well, it was a blast being back for Intentional Balk, and I want to thank everyone for tuning in to Intentional Balk. Lou Landers, Mark Mancini, have a great week or 2 weeks, because we'll be off for Memorial Day, but we'll be back in 2 weeks' time for more great baseball talk on Intentional Balk. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks for stopping by the office. Get your fantasy prescription by subscribing to the channel and checking out drroto.com. And until the next visit, be well and take care.